This is Rugby Roundup. Coming up, we take a look at Moseley's win at Swansea, B's defeat at Ayr, and we throw it forwards to Worcester's game against Plymouth. Hello and welcome to Rugby Roundup. I'm Paul Bradley, in for Christina Savas, and I'm joined today in the studio by Brian Dick. Hi Brian.
Hi brothers.
Well, it was a good game for Moseley, a good victory against Swansea. What was your verdict?
Well, it was a strange performance from them really. They played well for the first 10 minutes and scored 2 tries, 14-0 up, and it's happy days. And we're looking at the stuff they've been working on, finishing tries off. It was going quite well. And then for an hour they just drifted out of the game completely. They stopped managing it, and they found themselves 8 points down, and then requiring another 10-minute burst at the end, which they produced to finish it off with a 28-point victory, and four tries and another bonus point, which leaves them in good position in the league, in their pool. But not a great performance at first and last 10 minutes aside.
So is Ian Smith going to be happy with that performance, or is he going to be a bit worried and be looking at thinking there's still plenty to work on?
Well, there's very little to be happy about Moseley's performances at the moment, to be honest with you. Those 10 minutes aside, I suppose you could say that at least they've got it. They know they've got it in their locker to score some tries. But the intervening hour was pretty modest, if we're honest. A lot of the failings that we've been talking about ad nauseum of late is their inability to convert their pressure into points, and that was in evidence again on Saturday. And we'll hear from Joe Monroe, who made his debut on last weekend, and he noticed that failing as well. So not a lot for him to be happy about, I wouldn't have said. Then again, British and Irish Cup, not too much for him to be massively upset about either.
So how seriously would you say Moseley are taking this cup this season? Is it a practice ground for them, or is it something they'll be pushing hard for win in every game?
No, very well. They'll always come across and say they want to win every game, but it is exactly that. It's just a practice going. It's a training exercise for them. Basically, their selection reflects that. Somehow, let's not be disparaging. It's better than somehow. They played very well in their first game and won down at London Welsh. They've just beaten Swansea. They've got maximum points from the first 2 games so far. How seriously are they taking this game? Possibly more seriously than they'd have liked, because there's a school of thought at Bilsley Common that says that they don't actually want to qualify for the quarterfinals, because that comes that would interfere with their preparations and what they're doing in the all crucial championship playoffs. So if they beat Neath on Saturday, as there's a chance they'll do, they could potentially be 15 points out of 15 and almost certain to qualify. So what do they do then? I mean, it's you can't throw a game on that basis, but it's another variable and another quandary and another instance, another match for their leading players to risk injury.
Okay, well, interesting times at Bilsley Common. After the match, we caught up with Joe Monroe, and here's what he had to say.
I mean, coming in from a sort of a new person, it was good to get a sort of first game under your belt. Get to know the boys a bit better. Get involved. From a team point of view, I think as the game went on, we got better and better. I mean, first half was a bit scrappy. Set piece went rubbish for the first half. But we're getting on that front foot, and then we were just throwing that 50-50 ball that wasn't on, giving away the ball. Then we started second half. Thought we played much cleverly, and held on to the ball, went through the phases. Sometimes just that last pass just wasn't on, and we spilled it. But overall, we got a win, which hopefully will give some of the boys a bit of confidence, which much needed over these last few weeks. And I think as the game went on, the confidence sort of build. The noise levels, the chat, and I think it'll do massive things for the club in the next few weeks.
Now let's move on to Worcester, and they lost against Leinster. A little bit embarrassing for them, but again, there's that question of how seriously they'll be taking it themselves.
Yeah, it's probably no more than embarrassing. It's the sort of thing that would make you blush slightly, but nothing worse. They've still got a chance of qualifying. Let's be honest, they're 4th in the table, but they've only played 2 games. Cornish Pirates look as though they're away, and they're going to take that table. But Worcester have got Plymouth this weekend. They've got to go to Curry, and then they've got Pirates, who will probably have qualified by then in their final group game. So it's not difficult to envisage a scenario where they take 15 points and still do qualify. if they don't qualify, as we just said, it's a little bit of an irritant. It's not crucial to their season, but I think they still will. And as you said, they've got Plymouth this weekend, and it's difficult to see Plymouth coming away with anything other than a 20-30 point defeat, I would have thought.
And do you think Richard Hill's going to be looking to try a few things in these matches and take a look at some of the players who don't necessarily get that much first team action?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. He's given the first team regulars not a 2-week break from active games, and what they're doing is they've entered a mini pre-season effectively. They're all getting a fortnight's worth of beasting. With the idea that they'll be desperate for some red meat when the league action returns. And he's handed over the management of the British and Irish Cup campaign to the academy coaches. They'll be selecting a lot of the players they're familiar with, as well as the odd first teamer here or there. So there's things to be won individually for Worcester and for their players, and collectively, as I've said, they should still go through. And if they're not in the latter regions of the knockout stages, no one's going to cry, but it will be a mild surprise, I suppose.
Well, let's move on to Bees. They lost at home to Ayr. What was your verdict?
Well, again, it was a strange performance. They got themselves into a decent situation. It's something that they were doing a couple of months ago, where they were getting into good positions against good sides and then tapering off. They got themselves into a pretty good position against Ayr as well. They were leading, but Ayr just kept chipping back at them. The second half, the Scots had the conditions, had the rain at their backs and the wind behind them. So it was obvious how they were going to play that game. They kicked for position, they played for territory. They scored a penalty and a try, and that was enough to win it in the end. But Bees were very much architects of their own downfall. They both in the game and before the game. There's a few questions to be asked about selection. I've had a discussion with Russell about selection. He made a lot of changes at a time when they'd just come off the Doncaster game, and maybe keeping the same centre partnership, maybe, and a few of the same combinations, so they can build a bit of momentum into their league programme. Might have been an idea. Russell has said to me that if he'd have lost Mark Woodrow in the British and Irish Cup game against Ayr, and then he couldn't have been available to play against Moseley, he'd have been pretty angry with himself. So I can see both sides. Momentum or game time for fringe players, or flip a coin. Which side do you want it to come down?
And of course, it's not that far away now for them to be thinking about the playoffs and how they're going to escape out of that. Do you think Russell Earnshaw's starting to know how he wants to approach that crucial point in their season?
Yeah, both Moseley and Bees, they play on January the 29th. They're both planning for that game already. Even 2 games ahead of this game. So, they've rotated their squads for these 2 British and Irish Cup fixtures with that match in mind. I think there's a tacit admission at both clubs that they'll be in the relegation playoffs. Who goes down will probably come between Bees, Moseley, and probably Esher as well. So yeah, I mean it's impossible not to plan for it. Again, it's flip a 3-sided coin as to which one you think is going to go down out of that lot. But it's their raison d'etre for between now and the rest of the season, avoiding that relegation place.
Okay. Well, we spoke to Ross Nunan, and here's some of his thoughts.
A few changes, alright, but at the same time there was a lot of fellas who played very well last week who were back in again this week, and we were up for the game, and we expected a lot from ourselves, so it's a bit disappointing to lose the momentum that we started to build from last week, But
that's the biggest issue, isn't it? Momentum now. You could win games. You've got to win 2, 3, 4.
No, absolutely, and it's a massive run, and there's no doubt about that. Like I said, you only have to look at the table and see who we've got up in the next league game, and 2 games after that, where we need to produce what we did last week, consistently,
Well, that's all we've got time for today on Rugby Roundup. We'll be back again next week with more rugby news.